Hey wine lover, I have a different kind of interview for you today that features the audio from a video I hosted and produced for the Napa Valley Wine Library Association last year. Since you don't have to watch it, you can do whatever you need to do while hearing about one of Napa and Sonoma County's iconic wineries.
One of my favorite things, we actually have this framed in our history gallery where our very first review said, Silver Oak is a very fine claret, even if it is a bit overpriced at $6 a bottle.
He's David Duncan, the chairman and CEO of Silver Oak Winery. This interview is a deep dive into the history and legacy of Silver Oak. You can see the video on my YouTube page. Search for On the Wine Road podcast with Jeff Davis. But you podcast listeners can hear the audio in just a moment. On the Wine Road podcast is supported by Sonoma Clean Power. For 10 years, they've been educating residents on how their actions can make a greater impact with clean, renewable energy at poweringeverydaymoments.org. That's poweringeverydaymoments.org. Now on to David Duncan. We recorded this video and interview at the remarkable Alexander Valley location. We were in a secondary space they have for tasting events and such, with 3 walls of windows that offered a beautiful view, as well as a slight bit of reverb from our voices. You might detect that. Silver Oak's legacy began years ago when the Novaks of Spotswood Winery invited David's father, Ray, to see the beautiful region they were in, and he was so intrigued and taken by it, he ended up buying land during that trip in Alexander Valley.
Yeah, that's how it all began, Jeff. My dad's first vineyard was the Los Amigos Vineyard, which is just about a mile from where we're sitting right now, here in the Alexander Valley. That he was partnered with Jack Novak, whose family today owns Spotswood, and they were the Los Amigos that owned that vineyard together.
So he purchased that during his first trip, huh?
Yeah, 1970.
And as you mentioned, he partnered with Jack Novak.
He did on that first vineyard. Never in the wine labels, but on that first vineyard property, for sure.
Well, shortly after Ray established the vineyard, he hired winemaker Justin Meyer, who had worked with Christian Brothers. Ray had recently purchased a dairy barn in Oakville about that same time, so that's when you got established in Napa Valley.
Yeah, and actually the part of that history is that my dad bought the dairy and was looking for somebody to help him plant and farm the grapes there and plant grapes. And so that was the early summer of 1972. And the story is that a friend of his called him and said, "Did you hear the news?" And he said, "What news?" He said, "Brother Justin from Christian Brothers has renounced his vows and left Christian Brothers and is looking for something to do." And so my dad called Justin and said, "Do you want to plant the vineyard?" And Justin said, "I want to make wine." And Dad said, "Well, I don't know anything about making wine. I just want to grow grapes." So Justin said, "I want to make this style of Cabernet Sauvignon." And Dad said, "Let's be partners." And they stuck out their hands and shook hands. And so we were 50-50 partners with Justin and the Meyer family.
I saw that he partnered
for all those
with
years. Yeah.
That was a clever move.
Yes.
To instill his dedication.
Absolutely.
And I understand that he was adamant about being 100% Cabernet.
That is our slogan, life is a Cabernet, and for Silver Oak, we've stuck to that, for more than 50 years now. And
you eventually brought in some other varieties, though.
Well, and under some of our other labels, we got curious after a long time, but it's been a wonderful run, and we owe a lot to the Meyer family for the first 25 years of our.
And I imagine it was kind of a big risk at the time because Cabernet did not have the reputation that it had in subsequent years.
No, I mean, I remember as a kid coming out, not only was it not Cabernet, it wasn't really grapes, right? In the early days in Napa Valley, everybody was still growing, prunes and almonds, as we say, and there were many Italian varietals because the post-Prohibition times took a long time to turn the corner, and so they call it that class of 72. There was a number of vintners that started and began, and we're proud to be part of that.
I think 76 was the other date that really kicked up the interest in Cabernet and Cabernet-based Bordeaux wines, and you guys intended to be a Bordeaux-style winehouse.
From the beginning, yes. I mean, the only thing that we committed to that was different was that we've used American oak barrels.
Right.
Again, Justin wanted to make a style of wine that was approachable, really meant to be paired with food, and he preferred the use of American oak barrels, which he had, seen Andrei Chelichev doing at BV and had some experience at Christian Brothers himself, and he really liked that flavor profile.
You mentioned the first bottling was in 1972, but the designation was North Coast.
That's right.
So was that a blend of Alexander Valley with Napa grapes?
So believe it or not, there was no Alexander Valley appellation, and there was no, true Napa Valley appellation at that time.
Right.
And so, and we were, most of our fruit was coming from the Alexander Valley at the beginning. And so, we appellated it North Coast until the Alexander Valley appellation was established.
Which was right on the heels of what you were doing.
Yes.
It was, I think.
And Justin was actually really integral in drawing the lines and making that appellation come to be.
Yeah, I saw it was important to him to use Alexander Valley eventually on the label because he really respected what was going on up here and wanted to be the leader in the forefront of the people making wine in this appellation.
Absolutely.
The first Napa Valley vintage was 1979, and I understand it became so popular so quickly that people were lining up and camping in the parking lot ready for the next release after each vintage.
Yeah, I mean, part of the story of that was that the 1974 Silver Oak, which was still designated North Coast, actually won the California Gold Medal.
Right.
And so when we launched the Napa Valley appellation wine in 79, that didn't come out now until 1984, I guess, was when that was released. And by that time, we were pretty well established in the restaurant community, and that's when people started showing up at the winery, and buying, especially all the large formats they could immediately. The restaurateurs were loving that, and we were making very small case quantities at the time. And,
all right, so it was selling out.
And so it was selling out immediately, and fortunately, we still sell out in a few months. So
great, yeah. I forgot to mention that the original release sold for the incredible price of $6 a bottle.
That's right.
Exorbitant at that time.
That was one of my favorite things. We actually have this framed in our history gallery where our very first review said, Silver Oak is a very fine claret, even if it is a bit overpriced at $6 a bottle. It was an extraordinary price. I mean, Cabernet at that time was selling for $3 a bottle.
Yeah. So 6 was twice as much.
Yeah.
Boy, if we could just go back there for one weekend.
Exactly.
I thought that would have been a great promotion for your 50th anniversary to sell it for $6.
We did do that. If you could buy one and buy one for $6.
Really?
Yes, we had that. We had that offer for
last
our 50th
year
anniversary.
So
we celebrated COVID sort of
21?
messed that up, but yes, it was a joyous thing to do. So
I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah.
Great idea. That's funny. So you were very popular in the 80s, as you mentioned, and Robert Parker had become a fan by then, and he was writing about Silver Oak. So things were going well until 1994 when Justin decided it was maybe time for him to move on. And I understand that he began looking for a successor. He brought in Daniel Barron, but spent 6 years working with him to make sure that they continued the continuity of Silver Oak.
Yeah, and it's part of now the fabric of our history is that in our 53 years, we've only had 3 winemakers. And
right.
So Justin, knew he couldn't do it forever, and we hired Daniel in 1994. Daniel came to us via Chateau Petrus and Dominus, and was an incredible addition to our team. And I worked very closely with Daniel for many years, and loved the guy, and was a perfect successor to Justin. Part of that story was that in 1994, Daniel came in and said, how can I put my signature on the wine? And Justin said, you can't touch the Alexander Valley, but you could do whatever you want to the Napa. So in the 94 vintage is when we started blending in other varietals. Up until that time, both wines were 100% Cabernet Sauvignon.
Finally started bringing on Cabernet Franc and Merlot.
Which today we still do for the Napa.
In 99, you expanded the portfolio further by choosing to bottle Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc. But you didn't want to just slap a Silver Oak label on it and use a Burgundy bottle. So you created another winery and called it Toomey.
Right. So Toomey started in 99, and what I like to call Toomey now with a little bit of hindsight is our exploration of other varietals. So the first wine we actually produced was a Merlot.
Really?
And then we acquired our first rights to a Pinot Noir vineyard in 2000, but the fruit was under contract. So the first vintage of Pinot we made was 2002. And then we got into Sauvignon Blanc. So today, Toomey focuses on Pinot Noir and our estate Sauvignon Blanc. Which is a wonderful, great summer drinking wine.
You've been expanding your reach. You started in Calistoga, then came to Russian River Valley, then up to Anderson Valley, and now in Dundee and Willamette Valley in Oregon.
Pinot's, the heartbreak grape, and you've got to go to the ends of the earth to find it. Right. So we've been chasing it around from, the finest places there are to grow it in North America.
Yeah, and you source from Central Coast as well.
Yes,
from
Santa Maria and Gary's and Sobranos.
Well, it was enjoyable wine for sure for the Pinot lovers. And
Yeah.
Tell us where the name Toomey came from.
Yeah, Toomey is my grandmother's maiden name. Her name was Velma Toomey. She grew up in South Bend, Indiana, the home of the University of Notre Dame. And my dad's middle name is actually Toomey. And our oldest son's middle name is Toomey. So it's a family name.
That's interesting.
I always like to say Connor was named before the wine was, but it was close. It's a great Irish name. We actually have a box in the tasting room that if your name is Toomey, you can sign the box. And so we get quite a few Toomeys that come in and claim it as their own. Yeah.
And on the website, I noticed you have the Timeless bottle that you're selling now. It's a Bordeaux blend from Soda Canyon Ranch, and that offers a patchwork of 6 vineyards contributing to one exceptional vintage each year.
So Timeless came out of a song that I had written for my father's 85th
I was wondering which came
birthday.
first.
Yeah, the song came first. And my dad and I actually shared the same birthday. And I got together with my friend Jeff Gargiulo and some Nashville, Monty and Anna are great Nashville singer-songwriters, and we wrote this song for my dad's birthday. And then, regrettably, my dad passed away 2 weeks before his birthday, he never actually heard the song. But a few years later, we were because of our interest in single vineyard Pinots and trying to express place, I finally said, let's make a wine from Soda Canyon, which is a fantastic property that we own. It's a large vineyard. It's about 113 acres, but we call it 6 different blocks because there's so many. It's a hilly vineyard up in the southeastern hills of Napa.
Yeah. A lot of different microclimates.
A lot of different microclimates, a lot of different exposures, and so we created this wine kind of to honor my father. And somebody said, "What are we going to call it?" And I said, "Let's call it Timeless." And everybody looked at me like I was dumb because obviously Timeless would be on a wine bottle already. So long story short, we did the work on it, and we were able to secure the name Timeless Napa Valley.
Nice.
And now I've been making that vintage, or that wine for a number of years, and are having a lot of fun with it. And the wine's delicious, and it is in French oak. It's something completely different from Silver Oak, and our goal there really is to feature what Mother Nature gives us at that site that year, and so we have a lot of fun with it from a winemaking standpoint.
Right. And I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I understand that Nate Weiss is perfect for putting that blend together.
Yes, so Nate succeeded Daniel, and we decided 5 or 6 years of overlap was a little too long, so they worked together officially for 3 years. And Daniel's still around. Daniel's still consulting with us, and I had lunch with him last week. But Nate, comes from a wine family, is a wonderful leader and a fabulous winemaker.
Similarly, on the Silver Oak site, you have Ovid.
Yep.
And where does that come from?
So Ovid is was a winery that was started by a couple who bought the property in the late 90s. They planted the vineyard. Mark and Dan and Nelson Johnson were great friends of mine whose kids were at the Montessori school in St. Helena where our kids went to school. So we knew each other through the school. The first vintage was 2005, and I have been a collector of those wines from the beginning. I love the site. I love the place. And in the fall of 2016, Mark and Dana called me up and said they had decided to sell the winery, and what should they do? And I was like, I want to buy it. And so we acquired Ovid in 2017 and have been the stewards of that property since then. And what Ovid is really unique in that it is a very, very, very unique site in the Napa Valley, in that it's on Pritchard Hill,
nice.
But it's on the western side. It's these red dirt soils. It's an incredible site, very different from some of the neighbors around there, which are some of the finest wines with Continuum and Colgan and Brand and very different than Chapelet. And so we were just very excited to have this opportunity. The other thing is that there was the opportunity to plant more vineyard there. And so our winemaker, Austin Peterson, who's been there all but one vintage, calls it the Ovid 2.0 in honor to, Mark had a little bit of tech in his background.
Right. Yeah.
And so we've replanted that vineyard now, and we'll be getting our first fruit from that probably next year.
And where does that name come from?
So Ovid was a writer, a Roman writer that wrote the poem Metamorphosis.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a famous classicist. Mark and Dana were both classicists and love ancient Roman and Greek writing and
that's great.
Yeah. So and music and so they have a passion for that, and so we play with that for all things Ovid.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in 2002, your dad decided to step aside, and I understand he had an idea who should be his successor. And tell us how that went.
So It dates back a little further. So in the early 90s, I decided I needed to learn a little bit more. And so I went to business school in Denver at night.
Yeah, you're still in Colorado at this time.
The first time I dialed into the internet, mind you, was with one of my business school classmates. And so there was no internet, there was no online learning. So I was still living in Denver at the time. And I decided when I got to the end of my MBA that I was asked by a professor to write a paper. They didn't call it a thesis, but that's basically what it was. And so I did a report on Silver Oak in 1994. It was called Simplicity and Elegance. Nice. And I built the first financial forecasting, spreadsheet in Lotus 123, which is a precursor to Excel. And but that's how long ago it was. And kind of had a vision for how to build Silver Oak and what we should do. And then in 2001, we ended up, the Meyer family, Justin, unfortunately, started to have some health issues in the late 90s and decided the best thing for his family was to sell his share of the winery. So we purchased the Meyer family share in 2001. It was in the press that, Ray Duncan buys Silver Oak, and so we still get asked today, like, when did you buy Silver Oak? But it's important to know we co-founded it.
Right.
And, and again, I can't say enough about the Meyer family and our friendship with them.
The chairman and CEO of Silver Oak Winery, David Duncan. Things were about to change for David and his family, who at this point were living in Colorado. We'll pick up there after this message from Sonoma Clean Power.
Sonoma Clean Power is proudly celebrating 10 years of serving Sonoma and Mendocino counties as your local, not-for-profit electricity provider. In the early 2000s, California passed legislation allowing cities and counties to create community choice power providers, public agencies owned by the community they serve. SCP began in 2014 and immediately launched Evergreen, our 100% local, renewable service that became a model for the nation. Since then, we've saved customers millions of dollars while reducing greenhouse gas emissions, investing in our communities, and brought energy education to our schools. We've advocated for grid reliability, climate safety, and also increased the number of electric cars and bikes on our roads. Together with our customers, we've made great progress, and we're not done yet. Join us as we continue to light the way during the next 10 electric years. Sonoma Clean Power. Innovation grown locally.
And now let's get back to the audio of the video I recorded with David Duncan of Silver Oak Winery.
And then in 2002, Dad walked into my office in Denver one day. I was working for the family in Denver and said, what would you think about going out and running the winery? And I was like, what? And so my wife and I agreed that moving to California for our family would work. And we, I like to say I took the next 35 years of my life and threw it over my shoulder in Colorado. And we came out to St. Helena, and the only people I really knew were the Novak kids. And, but we've been here ever since, and It's been a good run.
What a wonderful thesis topic for you to have, because you were very familiar with it.
It's fun to go back and look at that paper, which I've done recently, and it's pretty funny. And many of the things that I said then are still true today. We've really tried to stick to the vision of what Silver Oak is, and it was a good vision. And Justin and Ray had a wonderful partnership and a great way to approach it.
And your brother Tim had been here the whole time.
So Tim started at the winery in 1986, right when he got out of college, and he literally had a bag and was running around to California restaurants selling door to door. And so Tim's been here for many more years than I have, but we're great partners, and of course with the passing of my dad, we're actually partners. And we have a wonderful relationship and a great way to put it. Before we came on, I told you, that the way I like to say it is, it's my job to get it in the bottle and his job to get it out of the door. So that's what we do.
So he has the toughest part of the two jobs.
the sales part. But if it's good, it's easy to sell. So.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
and especially if you have the reputation that you have, it's a lot easier. Well, the fire situation is not just a recent occurrence. In 2006, your Oakville winery burned to the ground, and you had to start over. But I saw that ultimately you see that as a positive outcome.
In hindsight, almost that afternoon, honestly. And to be clear, we did not have a forest fire. We had a dumpster fire that caught our building on fire, and it was a different approach. But I've been very empathetic to the fellow vintners who have lost their properties, in the recent wildfires. But literally that afternoon, there's a story about it that we were down We had 50 firefighters. It was a big fire. It was a disaster.
Wow. All from a dumpster.
And yeah, from a dumpster. It happened to be a very windy February morning, and the building burned down very quickly. And it was the spiritual home of Silver Oak. It was the actual dairy barn where we began that primarily burned down, and the rest of the winery was pretty severely damaged. So that afternoon, we're down at my dad's house, which is just down the lane from our Oakville winery, and I think it was our CFO was like, "What are we going to do now?" And everybody was crying and sad. And without missing a beat, I was like, "We're going to rebuild the winery. We need to start right now." We opened wine. Everybody started laughing. We started talking about what we needed to do, and almost immediately we just said, this has happened, and we've got to move on and do the next thing.
Let's talk about it now and get going. That's
and so we, it helped us. One of the neatest things that happened was that we had grown at the previous winery facility from making 1,100 cases to making about 30,000 cases. So there was a lot of duct tape and baling wire, as we say, of that winery. And so to have 35 years of experience just producing one wine and having the opportunity to build a new facility just to make the one wine, which is what we do today, that's why I say
with all the needs in mind of what you had to consider.
Yeah, and hospitality had changed, and so all of those. Right. Plus, we built a really neat building and reclaimed stone and all.
Yeah, it's fascinating where you found that stone.
Yeah,
an old flour mill in Coffeyville, Kansas.
It was a flour mill and a cooperage in Coffeyville, Kansas. And actually, last spring I had the opportunity to go to Coffeyville, and we did a wine dinner in celebration, and it was great fun and just wonderful people. And we honor that town and just love the building. But that building was originally it was completed in 1894. And so all of the stone at our Oakville winery was hand quarried Kansas limestone from the 1800s.
In a sense, it helped you maintain your sustainability desire.
It did, yes. And both our Silver Oakville location and the Alexander Valley location are both LEED Platinum, which we're very proud of from our footprint standpoint.
I was wondering how you heard about that stone being available, but now that you say there was a cooperage in town, I'm sure that had a lot to do with it.
Well, actually, no, it was our contractor that found the stone. He was on a call, and we were talking to Sire and looking for stone, and not necessarily looking for reclaimed stone. We kind of knew we wanted to build it out of stone, and all the good stone, is at Farniente and the CIA and and all the old wineries around here. And so we actually flew to Coffeyville while the building was standing and looked at it and assessed how to do it and how much it was going to cost and came up with a brilliant plan with a lot of hard work and we moved thousands and thousands of tons of stone.
Yeah, it must have been.
It was a big job, but the winery today, even the day we finished it, it just has such presence, and I love that hand quarried stone. It just looks amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of moving, I liked the idea that for the 40th anniversary in 2012, you wanted to connect on a deeper level with your club members, and so you had the imaginative idea to send your tower on a road trip.
We did the tower tour. Yeah, we call it Tower Tour 2012.
Yeah, a replica, though.
Yeah, it was a replica. We had a little mini tower, and the idea was that we went around and took photographs of the tower with other great American icons. So we made a big figure 8 all around the thing. I personally drove the tower over 1,000 miles on that trip, and I think we traveled about 14,000 miles total. But we took pictures with the Arch at St. Louis and the monuments in Washington D.C. With, of course,
that's a great idea.
All the things, and the Space Needle in Seattle, and the Hancock Building in Chicago, or whatever. All over the country. We had a great time.
Awesome.
And did wine dinners along the way, and just had a lot of fun.
I imagine you made a lot of new fans.
We did make a lot of new friends, and we were kind of looking at it like the Oscar Mayer Wienerbo meal that we would sort of. He's coming to town. And
were you serving bottles out of the
in some
window?
places? In some places, we would stop at the tower and do tastings. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Just a couple of years after that is when Nate Weiss came on board in 2014, and he's now the third and still there.
Very much so.
I imagine you anticipate him being there again for a while.
Hopefully, well after I'm here. Yeah. So that's going
to be quite a while then.
Yeah. No, he's a young guy, and just been a terrific addition to our team, and has his own mark and his own vision on the winery, I couldn't say enough about Nate.
2015 became another pivotal year for Silver Oak for two reasons. It became the first U.S. winery to purchase their own American oak barrel cooperage. And 2, construction began in Alexander Valley for their new tasting room and production facility, which was completed in 2018, and has joined the Oakville location as the world's first commercial production winery to earn LEED Platinum certification, the U.S. Green Building Council's highest level of recognition. You must be very proud of that.
Yeah, so, there's 2 threads to pull on there, but the cooperage, let me start there, was we have been buying barrels from that cooperage since the 70s. And so over the years, we formed a partnership with the cooperage. And then the family that owned it got into sort of retirement age. And so that's when we acquired full ownership. I've been accused of having some control issues. But today we produce about 80% of the barrels that we use for Silver Oak we call it the Oak Cooperage. And so it's a wonderful addition. We've really improved the quality of the barrel, the oak aging, all of those different aspects of the cooperage.
Nice to have that control.
The barrel's really important to our flavor profile and what we do. On the winery standpoint, when we built the Oakville winery after the fire, it was very important to me to add the sustainability component to our building practices. We were already doing it in the vineyards, something that I grew up with as a kid. But we were responding to the fire, so we didn't worry about certifying the building until later. And then, of course, we were able to get the LEED Platinum designation. When we started this project, we bought this property right where we're sitting in 2012, and it took us a couple of years to permit it and design. But I knew that we wanted to do something extraordinary.
Yeah.
So not only did we get LEED Platinum, but this building was also designated as a living building by the International Future Living Institute, who's an organization out of Seattle. And it is the only, to my knowledge to this day, it's the only manufacturing building there is, from a winery standpoint. And that has to do with our water use. So, we're basically net zero water, net zero energy, our material sourcing. My niece was very instrumental in helping us make sure that we documented everything properly to get that. And it was, up until about 6 months ago, the largest project that had ever been designated a living building. But I think we just got passed by an office building somewhere.
Oh, darn.
But we're very proud of that designation, and this is an extraordinary location.
That's remarkable. And I was going to ask about you being net zero, so it's great to hear that you have attained that. Yeah,
like one of the things here is that from a water use standpoint, and now our 2017 was our first vintage here. We didn't open the whole facility until 18, but 2017 we were able to crush grapes. So we have some experience now. So we use about 1 gallon of water per gallon of wine at this Alexander Valley winery. And
that seems very small.
The industry average is about 6 or 7 gallons of water per gallon of wine.
Oh, nice.
So it's a pretty extraordinary difference. And with our solar panels and the way that we put the heat exchangers in and the cooling and all of the different mechanical aspects of running a winery, we really had a lot of buy-in from our contractors and our subcontractors, and tried to think outside the box on how to do things and achieve something that nobody had ever done before.
As you mentioned, the idea was not to just do it the easy way.
Yes. No, we definitely. And although our president of our winery, Tony, had a wonderful saying as we went into this, saying, money is also a resource. So one of our goals was not to build green at any cost. We had to make it make sense. And everything that we did had a financial payback. I mean, we're a business. Ultimately, It's a passionate business, but it's a business.
Sure.
And so, I can tell you, we've been here 6 years, 7 years now, and everything's paid off.
Oh, nice.
One of the things that we also do is share what we did. So we've toured many vintners, people interested in getting in the wine business, architects, contractors, subcontractors. We work really closely with UC Davis on some of the ideas that,
that's fantastic.
Particularly Roger Bolton, but others were also working on at Davis. And implemented them in a real way here, and so there's a lot to share, and that's been part of it.
As I've mentioned many times, that's what I love about this industry is everybody shares their ideas and everyone comes together and supports one another.
Yeah, very much so.
That's very nice.
Much so.
And you picked a great location to build your winery.
It's a beautiful site.
Gotta like the view.
Yeah, I absolutely love it here.
As we talked about before, you don't really see it from the road either.
Yeah, and that was by design. It's the architectural idea of don't build a building on the best spot on your property, build it in the worst spot. And so we put the winery down in the hole.
Yeah.
But part of that was to, we didn't need to have a big presence. And we really wanted to, have the winery be humble, fit into the Sonoma County ethos, much like the Napa winery when we built that. We wanted that to feel, like the community and like the location. And I think both buildings are very different. But they reflect their place in a really positive way.
Well, in Oakville, it reflects the period of when the wine industry got going, I think.
Yes.
The way it looks.
Yes, it does.
We were talking about your brand Timeless earlier, and you mentioned that you recorded a song, and I imagine you did that with your band, the Silverado Pickups.
We did do it with the Pickups, and it was great fun. The Silverado Pickups has been just a wonderful addition to my life, and we have a group of guys from Napa that we're all together. Our claim to fame is that we've played every Bottle Rock, so we're the only band that's played every Bottle Rock.
That's incredible.
And including this year, and we got the contract for next year, so we're excited for that. And then a year ago, we went into the studio in Nashville and we recorded an album. And so we have a double album out called Bacon, Butter, and Salt. It's available on iTunes and Spotify or whatever, Pandora, whatever platform you use. And we kind of captured the sound of the Pickups and saved it. So there's 17 songs on the album, including Timeless.
I perused through that album on Spotify, I think, and you cover a lot of really interesting and talented artists.
We do. So we have the Pickups way of doing things, and we play about half cover songs, about half originals. It's just been great fun, and it's something I've enjoyed very much.
Not too much of a distraction?
Not too much of a distraction. No,
Okay,
we don't. As my wife says, keep your day job.
Nice. Well, that's very fun. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's been great.
David and his family have truly lived an extraordinary life over the past 52 years. As you heard, great thought and care were put into shaping their brand and considering the environment when building their legacy. For a closer look, visit silveroak.com. Today's episode was written, recorded, and produced by me, and I'd be grateful for your positive review on your favorite podcast platform. You can find wine news, trivia, photos, and interviews on my website, onthewineroad.us, and connect with me on Facebook at On The Wine Road and Instagram as JD Wine Road. I'll talk to you again soon as I continue my travels on the wine road.